Okay, everybody. This is part two of the video. This is the Iranian bomb. This has been hotly contested for really the past 25 years. Prior to September 11th, it existed. The problem of an Iranian bomb existed, but it wasn't really elevated to a particularly high space. It was, Pakistan in the 90s had already, lit off theirs. And so I don't think that we could say that we thought it was inevitable that Iran would get a bomb, but it was something to think about, but not something to worry about. In the post-September 11th world, all of a sudden it became something to worry about. And I think with good reason. Going back and talking about Pakistan is the first time where we have an example of the Islamic bomb. So a Muslim nation has a nuclear device. Okay, so why is it scarier if the Iranians get one when we already have an example with the Pakistanis? And I think that first and foremost is we're dealing with a different sect of Islam. We're dealing with, as we mentioned in part one of the video, we're dealing with the Sunnis in Pakistan and the Shia in Iran. And I'll let you go read Douglas Murray's death cult book of democracies and death cults if you really want to get down into the brass tacks on that. It's not something that I want to spend a lot of time on, but I am much more concerned over Iran having a bomb in its proximity to Israel than I am with Pakistan, who has to worry about Indian nukes right across the street from them. That's one of those one sword keeps another in its sheath kind of situations where you have two nuclear powers right next to each other. And, so I'm not that worried about Pakistan using a nuclear weapon because of, who would they use it on? India. Why don't they use it on India? Because India also has nuclear weapons. They are also not a massive state sponsor of terrorism. Yes, we can get into discussions about Afghanistan. We can get into discussions about, the level of support that they gave to Al-Qaeda. Fine. One thing that I don't think ever crossed anybody's desk with a realistic assessment was the possibility that Pakistan was going to give Al-Qaeda a nuclear device. Iran, on the other hand, and again, I think we should make a special note that we are specifically talking about the Iranian government, the fundamentalist government in Iran, not the people of Iran. This is very different. And you know what? I almost went down a Gaza rabbit hole, and I'm not going to. But I do like to separate the difference between the government of Iran and the people, the Persian people. Anyway, always been a problem. Never something that we were particularly worried about until after September 11th. And the biggest thing that we were worried about, at least I was worried about, was the possibility of a primitive nuclear device being given to a subordinate group. Like let's look at what we've seen. Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. Those three right now are the ones where you'd go, oh yeah, if they had a nuclear device, I wouldn't be surprised if they would use it. There's more to it than that, and we'll get into it. But I think that's why the fear of an Iranian bomb has persisted, even though we have the example of Pakistan as a country having, as an Islamic country with a bomb. It doesn't hurt that at the time that Pakistan first tested their nuclear device, they were still a representative government. They hadn't been overthrown and turned into another shithole Islamic totalitarian regime. But hey, don't want to, Alex at the time had no idea that was coming. Probably should have, but I didn't. Anyway, Iran is working on a bomb. Especially in 2003, we mentioned earlier that in 2003, the moderates got cracked down upon and the hardliners really took charge. When they did that, they also came upon the belief whether or not I think this is rational. Okay, first of all, let's talk real quick What are my political beliefs when it comes to schools of international relations? By and large, I've always been a neo-realist, and the biggest part of that to understand is that I believe that nations are rational actors that act within their own best interest. So they look at a situation and they apply their analysis based on the information that they have, and they take an action that they believe will be most compatible to their interest. I can go into a lot of reasons why Iraq pretended to have weapons of mass destruction. It didn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people at the time, but there were some really good reasons for it. And maybe that's another video. If you want that video, let me know. But for now, we're talking about Iran and the Iranian bomb. In 2003, the invasion of Iraq convinced Iran that in order to protect themselves from becoming the next country invaded, they needed an atomic bomb. They needed something that they could hang over the heads of the West to say, you don't get to come in here. Personally, that's what I would do. I would get a bomb if I were Iran. And my neighbor Iraq just got invaded. Oh, and we've spent the last 30 years yelling death to America. Yeah, I think that I'd probably want something that would stop the West from bombing and invading us. So that really solidifies their desire. In 2011, the United States of America and Western Europe essentially wrote a letter to, not literally, this is figuratively wrote a letter to Iran that said, "Dear Iran, whatever you do, never, ever, 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 ever give up your nuclear ambitions." Why do I say that? In the wake of September 11th, I don't know if you guys remember, but Muammar Gaddafi had Condoleezza Rice come over, and man, that dude had a serious crush on Condi. Don't get me wrong, she's big. I was a big fan of hers as well, but no, this guy had a schoolboy crush on Condi. And one of the things that came out of their meetings was Libya renounced their nuclear program. They renounced weapons of mass destruction. They renounced, I don't think they went as far as renouncing violence as a political tool, but they basically said, in exchange for our weapons of mass destructions, to include nuclear weapons, we want one thing from the United States, and that is a guarantee that you will not attack us. You give us that you give us that promise, we're good to go. We didn't give them the promise. We did give them the promise, sure. We said, yeah, that's great. Okay, let's undo all of that. Let's get all of your weapons of mass destruction program information. Let's take it all down. Let's dismantle that. Oh, by the way, it's 2011 now. And we're going to go ahead and help you be deposed and sodomized to death. That's why I've always said that 2011, the invasion, or no, it's not really invasion, but our support of the rebels in Libya was 100% the dumbest foreign policy decision that we've had, in my adult lifetime. It's worse than anything that came before it, because it sent a message to everybody in the world that said, never give up your nuclear ambitions. The only way the United States isn't going to fuck with you is if you have a bomb. I mean, that's literally, that's kind of what we ended up saying to them. All right, so now Iran has a bomb program. They definitely aren't going to give this thing up. What does that mean? What is a nuclear weapons program? All right. In order to have an offensive nuclear weapon, you're going to need a couple of things. One, you need a warhead. And when I say warhead, I'm kind of specifically talking about the mechanical device that will create the nuclear explosion. Okay? That's one thing. You also need a delivery vehicle. Now, this can be a lot of things. Okay? The delivery vehicle for the first two nuclear weapons used in war, B-29 Superfortress. Probably not going to be an effective delivery vehicle today, but, a freaking Toyota 4Runner, sure, that could be a delivery vehicle. I mean, just put the bomb in the back, drive it up to some place, and let it off. That could be a delivery vehicle. But realistically, we're talking about ballistic missiles for the most part. So you need a warhead. That's the mechanical part of it. You need the delivery system. And then the third thing you need is the fissile material to create the actual explosion. So you load the fissile material into the warhead, you activate the warhead, blows up. All right. So Iran has had this nuclear program, let us say, just to be as generous as possible. On September 12th, they thought, of 2001, they thought, oh, yeah, we're going to need to get a nuke. Let's pretend that. But they already had ballistic missiles. So they already had delivery vehicles if they could get the warhead small enough to mount onto the missiles. Okay. How long would it take them to create the warhead? Now, this is the part that cracks me up because this is the simplest thing. Now, I'm gonna bring up a picture. Okay, so check this out. This is my little Microsoft Paint nuclear warhead device or diagram. So you're going to take the explodey part, which is the red. That's just chemical explosives or conventional explosives, and that is going to push this little green part. Okay, now that's some spicy rock. Okay, that is weapons grade uranium. And the explosion is going to slam that piece of uranium into that bigger piece of uranium. And the pressure along with the amount of fissile material when slammed together is going to create the chain reaction that is the nuclear explosion, that is the energy release that causes devastation, and that's your nuclear weapon. Okay, so I'm a poli-sci nerd. Okay, I have nothing in physics, but I will ask my friend Timothy M. Holt to come in and double check my physics here. This is my rudimentary bonehead design for a nuclear warhead. I assure you that the Iranians have people that are much smarter than I am in this capacity. They had these designs the day before they even had a nuclear program. They knew how to make this. Everybody knows how to make these things, okay? The only question is how much of the nuclear fissile material do you have? And there's a lot of different things that go into that. So, how much pressure can you create in slamming the two together? That's one part of it. What's the enrichment of your fissile material? That's another part of it. All kinds of questions, but the basic rudimentary design was known out of the gate. So going into their nuclear program, they had ballistic missiles. And if they could get the warhead small enough, and that's that math that we're talking about how much fissile material, how much pressure, how much chemical, propellant, blah, 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 if they could get them small enough, they could get the warhead on the missile. All right, good to go. And again, never underestimate the ability of a gravity bomb slapped onto an F-14 Tomcat. I mean, you get enough staples and hot glue, and you can make this happen. I mean, it's like, okay, imagine a one-way trip. You get that Tomcat up in the air, and you point it at the ground and hit afterburners and flip the switch at the last minute. Elhamdulillah. They're definitely going to have the opportunity to turn that into a delivery vehicle. All I'm saying is that they had the design, they had the delivery vehicles, they had potential delivery vehicles that could be that could be utilized. So what was the one thing that's missing? Fissile material. That's the highly enriched uranium. So there's uranium is everywhere, tons of uranium in the world, but only the most concentrated uranium can be used in nuclear weapons. So that's been the threshold. That's been the thing that has been keeping the Iranians from getting all of the pieces together for the Iranian bomb. To be honest, it blows my mind that they weren't able to secure enough material from what in the 2000s we used to call loose nukes from the collapse of the Soviet Union. I really thought that that's where they would end up getting their fissile material. But, when it comes to something like that, and I don't want to get too far off course here, but if they were going to make a plutonium bomb, That's a different critter. That's where you have that's the difference between Fat Man, the plutonium bomb, and Little Boy, which was the uranium bomb. We've been talking Little Boys this whole time. Getting into Fat Man, that is where it gets a lot more complicated. And the physics people are like, why do you keep making weird implosion hands? Let's not worry about the plutonium bombs. Let's just talk about uranium, because that's really where the focus of the Iranian project has been. So we know that they had been enriching uranium. Now, there are chemical processes, as I understand it, and then there is the use of centrifuges to separate the highly enriched uranium from your regular fuzzy rocks. Okay. As we understand it, they were doing that process of enriching the uranium, and we decided in 2015, oh, let's make a deal with you guys. You guys stop enriching uranium for 5 years, and we'll give you, we'll relax the sanctions on you. We'll give you some bonus money. If you remember the crate of money that went to Iran in 2015, early 2016. I can't remember when that was. They basically, the Obama administration more or less tried to pay. They paid off Iran to pause their program for 5 to 10 years. I never thought that was a particularly good idea, if for no other reason than because the Iranians are playing a long game here, and they're going to take your money, and they're going to take your sanctions relief, and maybe they'll stop, maybe they won't. Who knows what they're going to decide to do. Now, it does look like, from the reporting I've seen, that they did stop their enrichment process during the initial parts of that agreement. We pulled out of it under President Trump in 2018, and at that point it kind of went Wild West again for a little while. They were restarting their enrichment program. Then, if you recall, second only to the ridiculous 2011 decision to help overthrow Gaddafi, Biden decided that we should return the assets that were frozen during the 1979 revolution. This amounted to billions of dollars worth of seized assets that we sent over back to Iran, and no surprise, went to fund terrorism throughout the Middle East. I'm sure some people are going to get their accounting buttons out and say, well, actually, all of that money went to internal projects, and the money that went out to terrorist organizations was totally from a different queue. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's just like the lottery goes to support school education. I don't know how to tell you this, but if you buy a lottery ticket because you want to support education, then you're being very, very foolish. The education budget is what it is. If you buy a lottery ticket, they're going to take that lottery money and put it into the education budget. But you know what's coming out of the education budget? That same amount, and it's going someplace else. In this case, the whole point is October 7th was funded by the United States by releasing money back to Iran that was seized in 1979. So you get to yell death to America all you want, and apparently we'll pay you for the privilege. So whatever. Point being, they had paused, they started it up again, and that's what I don't understand about when Tulsi Gabbard comes out in March and says, well, it doesn't look like they're building a bomb. It's like, lady, they've got 2 out of 3 components. We know they've enriched a lot of uranium up to 60%. 90's the threshold for weapons grade. I don't see how you can tell me that they're not working towards a bomb. Now, if you're telling me that there's no official communique from the Ayatollah saying, hey, let's build a bomb. Yeah, probably true. But do they have a bomb program? Are they pursuing a bomb? 100% guarantee it. That's a lock. And it's that's been kind of an interesting bit over the past couple of weeks as we've gone into this. But at the end of the day, I think what I really wanted to get out of this is that Yeah, 100%. Iran was pursuing a bomb, and they were definitely getting ready to make a jump. I mean, and it doesn't take classified intelligence to see this, just to see what is needed and what they had done up to this point. They were definitely preparing to get to that. And again, I don't blame them. I would want a bomb too. So 100%, I was happy that the Israelis went in and disrupted their military when they went in and wiped out their air defense systems. I thought that's awesome. When in the amount of damage that they did to the military infrastructure of Iran just with the Israeli strikes, I thought was fantastic. I did not believe that we needed to go forward and hit the deep nuclear sites. I felt like that they had been slowed down sufficiently. I'm not going to complain that we did go forward and attack the deep sites. If you look at my analysis and the only thing that they needed was the fissile material, then yeah, you would want to knock out those sites if just to take care of that bit of it. Since they have the warhead, they have the delivery vehicle, let's go ahead and take out their ability to generate the fissile material. Now, I think that I'd be curious to know, and I honestly don't know this, but how do we know how much fissile material they have, and let me amend that. How much enriched uranium do they have, and of what purity or what enrichment is it? I'm curious how we have that information, those estimates. Is it possible that they have enough to procure a bomb, to produce a bomb? It wouldn't surprise me if they did, although at the same time, you would think they would have said something, when they were getting their ass kicked to put a stop to it, to basically say, stop or else. So I do feel like we did get in there in time to slow this down. The only thing that's going to prevent this bomb from happening, in my opinion, is a new government, regime change within Iran. And I do not mean that we put boots on the ground, overthrow the government, and then say, vote democracy. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that within Iran, they need the Persian people need to rise up, take charge, and decide they want to be a pro-Western, they want to be a secular model for what a secular country full of Islamic people can be. If they want to do that, and if they can do that, that's the only way that I think that the world will be safe from an Iranian bomb. So hopefully that's where we go. And you know what? It's 23 minutes. We're running a little bit long, but I don't think that it's going to take too long to talk about where do we go from here. And I think it's what I just said. Literally, Iran has to decide, the people of Iran have to decide, are we going to continue down this road? The military of Iran is going to have to decide, are we going to continue to take orders from this fundamentalist government? They've done this before. There was a fracturing of the military under the Shah. So you had parts of the military falling under the Ayatollah versus parts falling under Bakhtiar and the secular government. This wouldn't be the first time it's happened. It would just be the most recent time that it's happened. If there is a new and representative government in Iran, that's going to be the one thing that might solve this problem long term. But I do want to reiterate, I do not want to see American boots on the ground. I do not see the need. I do not see the use in sending our soldiers in. That to me doesn't make any sense. It's just going to cause more problems than it resolves when it comes to trying to set up a new government. basically every, if it is internal without official, U.S. support and soldiers and everything that we saw in Iraq, there will be a better chance of success, in my opinion, than if we do try to help them militarily. These airstrikes, that's one thing. If they were to try to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, and I understand that there's been a ceasefire, but if they did try to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to use some military force there as well. But again, we're talking about airstrikes. We're talking about missile strikes. We're talking about, this is the simplest way to look at it, to my mind. In order for this to be a success, no American servicemen can die. No American warfighters can die. You send in your B-2s, you send in your F-22s, your F-35s, you launch Tomahawks from submarines, you do everything you can from a standoff perspective. And as long as American soldiers and airmen and Marines and sailors aren't dying, then we're going to be able to call this a win. But the real win isn't going to be anything that the United States does. It's going to be something that the Persian people do, and that is establishing a new regime in Iran, a free regime and a representative government that they could have had back in 1979 if only things had broken a little differently. And so hopefully you got through all this, and hopefully you've got some opinions that you might want to express in the comments. Either way, hey, follow me on X, follow me on YouTube, share this video with your friends, like it. Come on, cut me some slack, man. I put some effort into this, and I'll talk to you guys later.